And so, hello there, and welcome to a new Night of the Movies podcast. And in these podcasts, I talk all things movies and TV and whatever I want for about half an hour to an hour once a week. And in today's podcast, I'm reviewing two films that I didn't review over the past 2 weeks. And those two films are Knock at the Cabin and Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. Because over the last 2 weeks, when those films came out, I have been remarkably busy. I have had a hell of a lot of uni work to do right now. And also, last weekend, I went away for a very nice weekend. It was a nice weekend away from everything, but then I came back from that weekend away and I realised I had so much uni work to do, so I haven't really had chance to do any film reviews, or any videos actually, over the past 2 weeks. I haven't done any videos since 2 weeks ago now. So, I'm back and I'm reviewing two films that I caught up with over the past 2 weeks in Knock at the Cabin and Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. I also know that The Whale came out in the UK over the past 2 weeks as well, but I didn't get a chance to see it because of how busy I've been. I had a chance to go and see two films and they were showing at my local cinema, so I thought, you know what, I'll go and check out Knock at the Cabin, see what M. Night Shyamalan's new film's like, and I've heard some very good things about Puss in Boots 2 as well. So I went to go and check out those films. The Whale wasn't on in my local cinema, so I knew I would have had to travel to see it, and I just don't have that time right now. Hopefully, I will have that time sometime next week, and maybe I'll do a video on The Whale, just reviewing it. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. I don't know how busy I'm going to be next week, so maybe I'll just talk about it in a podcast coming this time next week. We'll have to wait and see. But for now, like I've already mentioned twice, I'm reviewing Knock at the Cabin and Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. But before I do that, I should say what I say of every podcast that I do. Did I even say that right? I should say what I say at the start of every podcast I do. I don't know if I said that correctly, but still, unless you get the point I'm making, that if you are watching this podcast on YouTube, hello there to my viewers, but heck, you just don't have the time to watch the full podcast on YouTube. They can also check this podcast out audibly on Spotify and Night of the Movies on that platform. And if you are listening on Spotify, hello there to podcast listeners. Thank you very much, by the way, because according to my statistics, I don't get many listeners on Spotify. But if you are listening on Spotify, also, I should let you know that you can watch the podcast visually on my YouTube channel at Night of the Movies on that platform as well. Likewise, wherever you're watching or listening to the podcast, please feel free to like and subscribe if you enjoy the podcast. I mean, if you don't, that's absolutely fine. And if you don't like and subscribe, that's absolutely fine as well. But I will feel offended. But still, nonetheless, if you enjoy the podcast, please feel free to like and subscribe and leave me some feedback so I know what to improve on this in the future. Tell me what you like about the podcast, but also tell me what could be better. Do you want more guests on this podcast? You want me to talk about a topic in particular? Please give me some suggestions. I'd be thrilled to have some suggestions on what to talk about on a future topic on a future podcast. I would be absolutely thrilled about that. So yeah, leave me some feedback in the comment section or in the feedback section or wherever you're listening or watching this podcast. But anyway, guys, let's get into the topics that I'm talking about today, the films that I'm reviewing today. And like I said before, just almost lost train of thought there, like I said before, I'm reviewing M. Night Shyamalan's film Knock at the Cabin and also Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. Now, I'm going to talk about Puss in Boots: The Last Wish a bit later in this podcast. But first of all, let's start off with Knock at the Cabin, which, like I've already said, is a new film by M. Night Shyamalan. So if you don't know who M. Night Shyamalan is, he's directed such films as The Sixth Sense is probably his most famous film. Although I haven't seen The Sixth Sense because I know the twist in it. And that's put me off from watching it because I'm afraid if I do watch Sixth Sense, and I will do eventually, by the way, but I'm afraid when I do watch it, you know, I'm going to be thinking, I know the twist, I know where this one's going though, I know the big thing that happened, and I don't think I'm going to enjoy it that much because of that. So, he's most famous for probably directing The Sixth Sense, but also he's directed such films as Unbreakable, which I'm a huge fan of, by the way. That film stars Bruce Willis and Samuel Jackson. I think it came out in the 90s, or it might come out in the early 2000s, I can't remember now. But yeah, I was a huge fan of that film. I saw it for the first time, I think back in like 2017 or 2018, which honestly seems like a lifetime ago now, but still, I remember watching that film and kind of being blown away by it, how good I thought it was. And it wasn't critically or commercially well received when it initially came out, but I think, and a lot of people say this about a lot of movies, and I always kind of turn my nose when they say this, but I do think it's true with Unbreakable. I think it was a film ahead of its time. It did that whole thing about subverting the comic book genre before the comic book genre was this big thing that it is today. You know, comic book movies nowadays make like $1 billion, or they make up to $700 million a movie. It's crazy in America and worldwide. It's absolutely nuts, the popularity that the, you know, comic book genre has nowadays. And this film, though, came out before the comic book genre was all that. And I think when I watched in 2017, or was it 2018, whatever, when I watched it about 5 years ago now, I was watching it, you know, after seeing many MCU films and seeing many other comic book movies and going, oh, this is quite a clever film. So perhaps people didn't have that perception of Unbreakable when it initially came out, but I love that film. I need to watch it again, actually. I've only seen it once, but I was immensely impressed by it. I really, really liked it, because, you know, it's that whole idea of, are they supervillains, are they not? And I loved that film, highly recommend it. But then also, M. Night Shyamalan directed Split in 2016 with James McAvoy, and James McAvoy plays about 5 different characters, or 10 different characters, or 15 different characters in that film. He is incredible, and he's the best part of Split. I was not a huge fan of Split. I didn't hate it, I didn't even really dislike it either. I just found it to be fine. I didn't find the film that engaging and that compelling, but at the same time, I didn't mind it. It was okay, and I think the reason I liked Split is because of James McAvoy. If he wasn't in it, I wouldn't have liked that film. And so, yeah, I thought Split was okay, but I really loved the end of Split. And if you've seen Split, I'm not going to give it away, but if you've seen Split, you know what I mean. And then in 2019, M. Night Shyamalan completed that trilogy of Unbreakable, Split with Glass, which was not well received again when it came out. I remember when that film came out, and there's, you know, a lot of film reviewers online, film reviews which I greatly admire, were not big on that film. And I absolutely, well, I didn't love it actually, I was about to say I absolutely loved it, but I had a great time with it. It did feel a bit overstuffed at the time, and it did feel a bit unfocused as well, but I remember coming out of the cinema going, you know what, that was a satisfying end to that trilogy. That trilogy, which consists of Unbreakable, Split, and Glass. It was a satisfying end. It was watchable, it was enjoyable, it had some really great moments. And seeing Bruce Willis, Samuel Jackson, James McAvoy, I think Sarah Paulson was in that as well, seeing all those give amazing performances, and seeing how that trilogy ended, I loved it. I didn't love it, but I really, really liked it. I don't know why I keep saying I loved it. I think because at the time I did love it, but I think on reflection, you know, I didn't love it maybe as much as I was saying at the time, but, you know, I really, really liked it, and I loved the performances. Perhaps that's why I'm saying that I loved it. Perhaps that's why. But also in 2021, M. Night Shyamalan came out with a new and original film after completing that trilogy of Unbreakable, Split, and Glass. He came out with this film called Old, which I actually reviewed on this channel. I remember quite enjoying. I mean, I had some problems with it, but it was a fun film. It was entertaining, you know. It provided me a good time when I went to go see it at the cinema. And, you know, I had a fun time with it. I didn't think it was brilliant, but I enjoyed it. And also, M. Night Shyamalan has directed films as well, which I haven't actually seen. He's directed films like The Visit, pardon me there, The Visit, The Village, also The Happening, which apparently is famously bad, so I am a bit tempted to watch that. So yeah, M. Night Shyamalan, though, he's directed some stinkers in his time, according to critics anyway. I haven't seen those films. Maybe I think they're masterpieces, but I've been put off watching films like The Visit, like The Village, and so on and so on and so on, because I've heard not so great things about them. But also, he directed Signs as well, which is one of the films I've got here, which I've also got to mention, which I really, really liked. Signs had Mel Gibson and also Joaquin Phoenix in, and I really liked Signs. In fact, I was loving Signs up to about the last 10 minutes of that film. The last 10 minutes really let me down, because, right, not to go into too much detail here, because I'm talking about Knock at the Cabin, I'm going way too much about M. Night Shyamalan, but the thing is with Signs, right, the first hour and 40 minutes of that movie, and the movie's about 2 hours, so the first hour and 40 minutes is a film about a family, you know, and how they deal with an alien invasion. The film doesn't really focus on the aliens, though, it focuses on the family more than anything. But then in the last 10-20 minutes, it's almost like M. Night Shyamalan wants to make a different film. It's like, oh, let's put the alien invasion in here. You know, he wants to make a completely different movie in the last 10 minutes. And you just sit there and go, what? Because it doesn't. He'd been making one movie for the majority of the film, for about 3/4 of that film, and then the last quarter, it turns into a different film, and that just really annoyed me. So I really enjoyed Signs. I really liked it. Apart from the last 10 minutes, or the last 20 minutes, or however long it was, when the aliens kind of appear a bit more, and not to give too much detail there, but I just felt the whole alien stuff at the end of Signs wasn't needed, and the family stuff was the stuff that shone through in Shines. Hey, I can't speak. Right, the family stuff was the stuff that shone through in Signs, and the alien stuff was kind of like a footnote. You know what I mean? But now he's about to Knock at the Cabin. This is his latest film, which came out, I think, last Friday now, or maybe the Friday beforehand, whenever this podcast is going out. And if you don't really know, basically, Knock at the Cabin follows the story of this gay couple who have this adopted daughter, and they are staying in this cabin in the middle of nowhere together. Sounds a bit like a horror movie right now, but it's not really a horror film. And then basically, the young girl, who's the adopted daughter of this gay couple, she is approached by Dave Bautista's character, and he's saying stuff like, the world's going to end and you have to sacrifice someone in your family to stop the world ending. And then it turns out that Dave Bautista's character is not alone, there's other characters, and they seem like they're in a bit of a sort of a cult, but then they're all saying to the family staying in this cabin that they have to sacrifice somebody in order to save the world. And then as the film progresses, things start to happen, twists take place, and it's very M. Night Shyamalan. Although saying that, though, I've got to admit, I wasn't a big fan of Knock at the Cabin. I think my problem with this film is that I was expecting something which didn't happen. You know, it's an M. Night Shyamalan film, and he's famous for his twists. And I won't give it away or anything. I'm not going to go into any spoilers with any of the films that I'm reviewing in this podcast today. But I was expecting something which wasn't there. And I got to the end of the film, I was like, oh, it was okay. You know, I was walking out the cinema like, I was a bit let down by it, I'm not going to lie. I'd heard some really good things, and I went into cinema really wanted to like it, because I really enjoyed Old. I mean, Old was a bit silly and a bit strange, and I wasn't really sure what I wanted to be at times, but I enjoyed that film. I came at something going, you know what, that wasn't bad. I actually kind of liked it, and I'd rewatch it. I have no intentions to ever rewatch Knock at the Cabin. And that's not to say it doesn't have great things. In fact, you know, visually, it's beautiful to watch. The film, a lot of the film anyway, is shot in close-ups, and I liked that whole visual style. It was probably the most compelling thing of the film, to be honest. And also, I think the performances were all great. The young girl in the film is fantastic. She's really believable. But also, I liked the actor who played the gay couple. I liked Rupert Grint in the film. Most people know Rupert Grint as playing Ron Weasley in the Harry Potter films. But he's in there as one of the cult members. He's in the film as one of the cult members. And he's really good. A bit underused, in my opinion, actually. And also, you have Dave Bautista, who is fantastic in this film. Dave Bautista is a great actor, and he's really starting to show. You know, I loved him as Drax in the Guardians of the Galaxy films. I've spoken about it as many times. You know, the Guardians of the Galaxy movies are like that one shining bright light in the MCU that I actually kind of like. It's a one thing in the MCU that I like, the Guardians of the Galaxy films, and he's a big part of those movies. He brings a lot of comedic relief to those films, and I loved his performance as Drax. I can't wait to see his performance as Drax in the new Guardians of the Galaxy film, because it's going to be his last performance. But also, I've loved him in films like Blade Runner 2049, and also his small part in the latest Dune film, which came out in 2021, and also his smallish role that he had in Glass Onion as well. He had a lot of comedic moments in Glass Onion which landed very well. And so, yeah, I think Dave Bautista is a great actor and is getting better and better, and that's just reinforced in this film. Honestly, his performance is captivating, and there's a lot of things to admire. It's a well-directed film. It's well put together. It's well staged. It's well made, like I said before. It's well shot. It's beautifully shot. And the performances are all stand out. But the problem is, I liked everything about the film apart from the plot. I didn't find the plot compelling. So for that reason, I didn't find it engaging. I didn't find anything about the plot compelling. I didn't find it believable really whatsoever. And I didn't find it that engaging either. I was sat there about 3/4 way into the film going, why is this not working for me? Why am I not as gripped as I think the film wants me to be? And the answer is, I didn't find it that engaging. I didn't believe in the story being told. I really liked everything else going on though, and if the story was there for me, I would have loved this film. But it wasn't there for me, and the ending let me down as well. I was expecting something, like I said before, which wasn't there, and for that reason, I'm not a big fan of Knock at the Cabin. It's not awful, and I would not discourage anyone from watching it. In fact, I can see someone going to watch this movie and absolutely loving it, but it just wasn't for me. And so for that reason, I'm going to say it's a 5.5 out of 10. I'm going to give Knock at the Cabin a 5.5 out of 10 because there is so much to admire, there really is. But, you know, when you're not engaged in the film, when you're not invested in what's going on, when you don't find the film that compelling, you know, there's not much you can really get out of it. And that's how I feel with Knock at the Cabin. I really wish I loved this one, because M. Night Shyamalan, you know, I haven't seen a lot of his films, but of the films I've seen, I've enjoyed for the most part, with the exception of Split. You know, I've enjoyed his films, but this one didn't do it for me. And, like I said before, I can see someone going to the film and absolutely loving it, so I wouldn't discourage anyone from watching it, and I'm pretty sure it's still in cinemas, so if you do get time, go and check it out, sure. But, yeah, I was expecting something which wasn't there, and I found it rather unengaging. And I've written here one sentence which pretty much sums up my thought on the film as a whole. I really, really liked everything about the film, apart from the plot. And there you go. So like I said before, I would say that Knock at the Cabin was rather underwhelming, and I'm going to give it a 5.5 out of 10. But anyway, that's my review of Knock at the Cabin, and now let's talk about Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. So, Puss in Boots: The Last Wish is a new film in the Shrek universe. You know, we've had the first 4 Shrek films, we had the first Puss in Boots movie, which I think came out over 10 years ago now, which is kind of crazy when you think about it. The fact that the sequel has taken this long to come out, because I think that first Puss in Boots did critically and commercially rather well. I mean, I don't know if it blew up the box office, but I think it did decently. So yeah, I'm just a bit surprised that it's taken so long to come, the sequel. But it's here. It came out actually a week ago in the UK. I think it came out before Christmas in America. A bit jealous about that. But anyway, basically, if you don't know already, the plot follows Puss in Boots, once again voiced by Antonio Banderas, genius voice caster by the way. But anyway, yeah, the film follows Puss in Boots, who has died 8 times. Because he's a cat, he's got 9 lives. But because he's died 8 times, he realises now that he's on his last life. And he finds out about this wish he can do to basically give him more lives, so he can live again and be the Puss in Boots that we all know and love. So he goes on this adventure to go and find this place where he can do this wish. But along the way, he bumps into old friends. Kitty Softpaws, once again voiced by Salma Hayek, who was in the first Puss in Boots. He bumped into her again. He also makes some new friends. This sort of stray dog who is always positive, and also he bumps into characters like Goldilocks and the 3 Bears. Goldilocks voiced by Florence Pugh, and the 3 Bears voiced by like Ray Winston, Olivia Colman, and someone else whose name escaped me right now. But yeah, he bumps into Goldilocks and the 3 Bears, and also the big bad wolf, who is kind of representing death, and also Jack Horner, who all collide with him on his adventure to go and save his life and get that last wish so he can live like the Puss in Boots he once was. And that's basically the plot of the film. It's not a particularly amazing plot, not gonna lie, it's a bit silly, the whole thing with a wish. And also, I should say this, in the past when films have introduced the whole idea of wishes, they've often put me off, because I'm like, okay, you could just wish for a million wishes, you know, why do you have to wish for that one thing? Anyway, yeah, the whole idea of a wish in a film, it normally doesn't really work for me. But saying that though, Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, I really enjoyed. I really liked this film. And, I mean, by no means is it a masterpiece, but at the same time, though, it's fun. And I know a lot of people moan at comparing it to Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio, which is currently on Netflix and has been nominated, you know, in the same category as Puss in Boots for Best Animated Feature at this year's Academy Awards. So a lot of people are comparing Puss in Boots: The Last Wish to Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio, and I would say the better film is Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio. I would definitely say that. But I'm going to be honest as well, I had more fun with Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. It's a fun film. It really is. You know, there was just something about it which had that sense of urgency. It had this sense that it wanted to tell this story. It wanted to get the story out there. It couldn't wait to do it. And also, pardon me there, it's this rip-roaring time. It feels like a roller coaster, and at times, sure, it feels a bit overstuffed. Maybe they need the whole Jack Horner storyline in there. Maybe they even need the Goldilocks and the Three Bears stuff. But at the same time, no, I wouldn't take that out. I actually kind of enjoyed all that. So yeah, it does feel a bit overstuffed, but you know, I still kind of like that about it. And also, at times, it does feel a bit rushed. It does feel like the film's trying to do so much in so little time. And sometimes you do want to say to the filmmakers, just slow down a little bit. And there are parts of the film which perhaps wouldn't be needed, really, and that I didn't fully get along with. But I walked out the cinema after watching this film, and I was like, you know what? That was fun, though. I know I said that before, but it was the truth. It was fun. I had an entertaining time with it. I had a really enjoyable time. I found it entertaining, and I had a really good time with it. I know I said it before, but I'm going to say it again, because I was a bit hesitant to see it before I saw it, because, you know, there's these critics who I greatly admire who watched the film, though, and they weren't too big in it. So I was thinking, oh god, is that going to be like my experience? But actually, yeah, I had so much fun with it, and it was so so fun to see Puss in Boots back and seeing all the nods to Shrek as well. Like, I won't go into too much detail in case you're a huge Shrek fan and you haven't seen the film yet, but there's a lot of nods to Shrek in there, maybe some cameos of some of the Shrek characters, some of the side characters in the Shrek films, and also hearing Antonio Banderas back as Puss in Boots, and also little moments that were in the Shrek films, in the first Puss in Boots movie, which I forgot about, which came back in this film, and were very nostalgic. Like, you know, in the Zorro movies, like, Puss in Boots is just a rip-off of Zorro. But the thing is, though, they got the guy who played Zorro, Antonio Banderas, to voice Puss in Boots, so it kind of works. And by the way, I remember watching that first Zorro movie, you know, the Mask of Zorro, with Antonio Banderas, Catherine Zeta-Jones, and Anthony Hopkins when I was quite young, and really, really enjoying that film. I need to watch it again, actually. But anyway, yeah, I remember all the nods to Zorro to a degree in the Shrek films, but I didn't remember them too much. And then in the Zorro films, whenever Zorro has just done something, he leaves his mark in that big Z, doesn't he? And in this film, whenever it's Puss in Boots doing something, he leaves a mark in a P. You know, and it's just things like that, which I really, really liked. I've always enjoyed the Shrek films. I've always enjoyed them. I wasn't the biggest fan, though, of the first Puss in Boots. I actually watched that on the same week that I watched Puss in Boots: Last Wish. So that was a bit of a weird thing, because, you know, Puss in Boots, the first Puss in Boots, it's a bit of a weird film. It's like, they decided to put Puss in Boots alongside Humpty Dumpty in that film. The film's not bad. I was just kind of watching that film, though, going, well, why have you decided this pairing is the best pairing? Like, you came up with a Puss in Boots film, and you came up with an idea for a Puss in Boots movie, and you decided to put Humpty Dumpty in there. I don't know if it really worked well, I'm going to be honest, but it was weird watching that, because it's got a very different style of animation, and then watching Puss in Boots 2, because Puss in Boots 2 animation is beautiful. It's so much better than the animation in the first Puss in Boots movie. It's so much better. It's like the animation in Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. You know, that was a beautiful animated film, a beautifully animated movie, and this one is as well. It looks like someone's actually, you know, sort of, you know, drawn all these scenes up and has put them to paper. It just, I really, really had a good time with it, and I thought the villain was great, the big bad wolf. I also really liked Goldilocks and the Three Bears, and yeah, those just, I really, really liked it. Also, it was a fun family film, and what I mean by that is I can see the family sitting down to watch this film, and each member of the family getting something out of it. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's what the best family films do. Where, yeah, you know, they're primarily aimed at a younger audience, but adults, parents, or just older members of the family can sit down and watch that film now and still get something out of it, like the Wallace and Gromit movies. I can still get something out of them now, and I'm a much older age than when I initially watched those films. In fact, I think Wallace and Gromit, The Wrong Trousers, is a masterpiece. I love that film. And also Chicken Run, I can still get some out of Chicken Run. Most Iron films, to be honest, even Early Man, I really enjoyed that film. But also the How to Train Your Dragon films, in particular the first How to Train Your Dragon, which I only watched in 2019 for the first time, and I was like, okay, am I going to enjoy it? Is it really going to be my sort of film? I finished How to Train Your Dragon, I was like, wow. I remember going out after finishing that film, and I felt like I was on top of the world because of how joyful and how much fun I had with How to Train Your Dragon at this old age that I am now. And also the Lego movie, I can still get some out of that. The Lego Batman movie, which is amazing, great film. But also most Pixar films, not all Pixar films, like I don't know if a family sitting down to watch Lightyear would all really enjoy it. And I don't know the same about Onward as well, which came out in 2020. I didn't mind Onward, but it wasn't classic Pixar. But then I did watch Inside Out for the first time last year, actually. And I didn't know if I was going to like Inside Out. And I finished that film and I was actually quite emotional. So, yeah, most Pixar films, whether it's Incredibles, the Toy Story films, and so on and so on and so on, most Pixar films appeal to a family, but also, in my opinion, the first 3 Shrek films. Not so much Shrek 4, aka Shrek Forever After. I remember watching it when I was a kid. And the funny thing is about Shrek 4, I've probably seen it about, I don't know, 15 times. But the thing is, though, I never really liked it when I was a kid because it almost felt like they ran out of ideas with Shrek Forever After. But I've always enjoyed the first 3 Shrek films. I mean, I know a lot of people don't like Shrek the Third, but I love it. Because I watched that film was on repeat for me when I was a kid. That and the Simpsons movie, another great example there of what I'm talking about. Those 2 films in terms of animation were ones which were on repeat constantly when I was a kid. I would always stick Shrek the Third on. In fact, the DVD box kind of broke after a while because of how much I was using it and because I was taking it everywhere. Yeah, I loved Shrek the Third. I don't know how I'd feel about it now, though. I've watched bits of it over the past couple of years because it's on TV every now and then. And it's a weird film. It's a strange film. I don't really know what they were intending. You've got the same villain from the second Shrek film coming back. You've got Prince, Arthur in there? I can't remember. Yeah, you got Arthur in there, and even he isn't really needed. There's a moment in the film that I still remember in Shrek the Third when the bunch of princesses are just sitting around talking about how Fiona's now having a baby, and there's a lot of really strange moments. The donkey dragon babies as well. It's a weird film, but I love it. I love Shrek the Third. And I also love the first 2 Shrek films, although so does everyone else. The first 2 Shrek films are actually genuinely good films. Like Shrek 2, I would argue, is one of the best sequels of all time. I love Shrek 2, it's great. And wasn't that the first Shrek film which introduced Puss in Boots as well? I might be wrong. But Jennifer Saunders as the fairy godmother, Rupert Everett's Prince Charming. Shrek 2 is brilliant. But I also like Shrek the Third. I know it's not for everybody, but I enjoy that film. I really do. And I'm not a huge fan, though, of Shrek Forever After, but I really do love the Shrek films. And so I've kind of been missing the Shrek films a bit, and watching this film made me realise how much I'd missed the Shrek movies. And so I'm really hoping they make a Shrek 5 now, because this film does nicely set Shrek 5 up if they want to make that. Fingers crossed they will, because this film has done well at the box office, so fingers crossed they do announce another Shrek film, because I know Shrek's become a bit of a meme, but I still really enjoy those films. They're good films in my opinion. And back to what I was saying before, they're good family films. They're films which appeal to the full I can't speak. Films that, if a family sat down, they would all really enjoy the film in my opinion. At least the first 2, maybe not the second 2 Shrek films, but yeah, I remember watching Shrek 2 last year and still really liking it, and I'm not a kid anymore. So yeah, I really hope they make another Shrek film, because this Puss in Boots reignited that my love for it, you know, and I think it reignited a lot of people's love for these characters, for Puss in Boots, and potentially seeing these characters back in a film where they get to interact once again with the characters from the Shrek franchise. I would just love to see it. Just get Donkey back, get, you know, Shrek back, Fiona, Pinocchio, and Gingy, and all these different characters. Get them all back. Bring Prince Charming back, because why not? Bring John Cleese's King back, because why not? They did that in Shrek 4, and, you know, not to go into too much detail, but spoilers here for the Shrek franchise in case you don't want to know what happens and you haven't seen those films yet. But John Cleese's King, the king that John Cleese voiced in those films, ended up dying in Shrek 3, but he was in Shrek 4. So just bring these characters back, make another Shrek film. I would love that, and make it so it appeals to the full family. Make it so it appeals to the whole family, like Puss in Boots 2 did. And that's ultimately I enjoyed it. Tried to mash both my points together, but the 2 points I was making there was that Puss in Boots 2 appeals to the whole family, and I'd love to see a continuation of the Shrek franchise. And like I said before, Puss in Boots: The Last Wish is wonderful, it's delightful, and it's such an enjoyable film. And yes, at times it does feel a bit overstuffed, but you know what? It's a fun roller coaster ride, and I'd definitely recommend it. Even for people my age, even people at a much older age, because I can see them enjoying this film just as much as I did. And so for that reason, I'm going to say that Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, I'm going to say it's a 7.5 out of 10. You know, the film doesn't quite live up to its first 10 minutes. Like, the first 10 minutes throw you in. There's a song and dance happening, and a really catchy song. So catchy, I forgot how it goes off the top of my head. But then there's this great action scene, and then the film doesn't quite live up to those first 10 minutes. But it's still, like I said before, a roller coaster ride of entertainment and also some emotions in there. It touches on some dark themes which I really was not expecting this film to touch on, especially with the whole big bad wolf character. And the animation is beautiful. I loved seeing these characters back, and give us Shrek 5. You know, kind of sign off here, but this does relate to the film. You know, you get the Dreamworks logo, because there's a Dreamworks production. You get the Dreamworks logo at the start of the film, before the film's even begun, actually. And it used to be, you know, that kid with a fishing rod sitting on the moon, and then he puts a fishing rod in the thing. If you remember, if you know, you know. And now they've kind of changed that. You still get the kid on the moon with the fishing rod, but then you see all these past Dreamworks characters like Kung Fu Panda. Then you see the How to Train Your Dragon characters. Then you also see the penguins from Madagascar films. And then you see Shrek, Fiona, and Donkey. And seeing them again, I don't know what it was, but I was like, bring them back. You know, I just wanted to see them back. I realised that in my review of Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, I've talked about wanting the Shrek franchise back more than the film, but it's the truth, I really do, because those are great family films in my opinion, at least the first 3. Maybe the first 2 more, but still, I would love to see those films back. And much like Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, the reason I'd like to be back is because they're fun family films. You know, I've spoken about it, it's the best family movies. You know, the best films that people call kids films are actually family films that can appeal to the full family. And that's what the Wallace and Gromit films do. That's what Chicken Run does. That's what the How to Train Your Dragon films do. That's what most Pixar films do. Not all Pixar films, but that's what most Pixar films do. That's what Minions 2 did, in my opinion. I know a lot of people didn't like Minions 2, The Rise of Gru, but I reviewed it last year and I enjoyed that film. You know, that's what the best animated quote-unquote kids films do. They appeal to the full family, and Puss in Boots: The Last Wish did that, and fingers crossed if they make a Shrek 5 it would do that as well. Make a Shrek 5, please. That's my beg to DreamWorks. Give us another Shrek film, because I'd love to see it. But like I said before, Puss in Boots: The Last Wish is a very entertaining, if slightly overstuffed, roller coaster ride that I had an amazing time with. Had a great time with Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, and I definitely recommend it. And like I said before, I'd give it a 7.5 out of 10 from me. Anyway, guys, that's it for today's podcast. Is there anything I've got to say that I've just forgotten to say? Hopefully I'll get around to doing The Whale sometime next week, and hopefully we'll have some film reviews coming, or maybe some TV reviews coming within the next week or so, because I'm hoping to have a bit more free time from Monday onwards, although saying that, my schedule will probably fill up just like that as well. So, you know, we'll have to wait and see. But hopefully I should have some more videos coming now in the next week or so. Fingers crossed. We'll have to wait and see about that. But thank you as always for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. I've been a bit all over the place today because I haven't had much time to plan this podcast. I apologise, and I'm also feeling a bit dizzy. I've talked about Shrek, fully enough. But yeah, hope you enjoyed this podcast. And if you did, please feel free to like, subscribe in, you know, below wherever you're watching this or listening to this podcast. Please feel free to like, subscribe, leave some feedback as well, so I know what to improve on the near term future. I know I said at the start of the podcast, but I just want to say it again here in case you skipped over that for any reason. Please feel free to give me some feedback, tell me what to improve on, tell me what works, all that. Give me some ideas as well for podcasts to do in the future. And I'm kind of losing it right now, so I'm just going to end this podcast. Thank you as always for watching, thank you as always for listening, and I'll see you guys again soon. But bye for now. Bye.